The crash. The vast emptiness of space shattered as Lyra's ship tore through Earth's atmosphere. Alarms blared, warning lights flashed, and the small vessel shuddered violently as it plummeted towards the ground. Lyra, her violet skin glistening with sweat, fought with the controls, desperately trying to stabilize her descent. Come on," she muttered, her four-fingered hands dancing across the flickering holographic display. The ship's eye had gone offline minutes ago, leaving her to pilot manually through a planet's atmosphere for the first time in her life. As the ground rushed up to meet her, Lyra caught glimpses of a world she'd only studied in data archives. Vast green forests, glittering bodies of water, and jagged mountain ranges. Earth, a planet of legend, isolated from the galactic community for centuries. With a bone-jarring impact, the ship plowed into a dense forest. Trees snapped like twigs, and the screech of tearing metal filled the air. Lyra was thrown against her restraints, her vision blurring as her head slammed into the headrest. As the ship finally ground to a halt, silence fell, broken only by the hiss of ruptured coolant lines and the faint crackle of electrical fires. Lyra hung limply in her seat, drifting in and out of consciousness. Her last coherent thought before blackness claimed her was a mix of relief and dread. She had escaped the war that consumed her homeworld, but at what cost? Miles away, in a cabin nestled deep in the woods, Jake Cooper jolted awake. The programmer had moved to this remote location years ago, seeking solitude after a personal tragedy. He'd grown accustomed to the sounds of the forest, but the thunderous crash that echoed through the trees was like nothing he'd ever heard before. Jake threw on a jacket and grabbed a flashlight, his curiosity overriding his usual caution. As he stepped out into the cool night air, he noticed a faint glow on the horizon, accompanied by wisps of smoke rising above the treetops. "What the hell?" he muttered, setting off into the woods. His mind raced with possibilities. A small plane crash, perhaps, or a meteor impact. Whatever it was big, and it was close. As Jake neared the crash site, the devastation became apparent. A wide swath had been cut through the forest. Trees toppled and earth scorched. At the end of this path of destruction lay something that made Jake's breath catch in his throat. It was unmistakably a spacecraft, but unlike anything he'd ever seen in NASA documentaries or sci-fi movies. The ship's sleek, organic curves were marred by impact damage and still smoldering fires. Fragments of an unknown, iridescent metal were scattered across the forest floor. Jake approached cautiously, his heart pounding. This was it, proof of extraterrestrial life, right here in his backyard. As he neared the ship, he noticed a flickering light from within, visible through a cracked viewport. "Hello," he called out, immediately feeling foolish. What were the chances that an alien would understand English? To his surprise, he heard a faint groan in response. Human or not, someone was alive in there. Jake searched frantically for an entrance, finally discovering what looked like a hatch. After a few moments of fumbling, he managed to trigger its release, and it hissed open with a rush of strange-smelling air. Inside, illuminated by the eerie glow of malfunctioning equipment, Jake saw her. The alien was humanoid, but clearly not human. Slender, with violet skin and delicate, almost crystalline patterns swirling across her face. She was strapped into a pilot's chair, unconscious and bleeding from a gash on her forehead. For a moment, Jake hesitated. This was beyond anything he'd ever experienced. He should call the authorities, let them handle it. But as he looked at the injured alien, he saw not a threat or a scientific curiosity, but a person in need of help. With gentle hands, Jake unfastened the alien's restraints and carefully lifted her from the chair. She was surprisingly light, almost fragile in his arms. As he carried her out of the wreckage, her eyes fluttered open briefly, revealing irises that shimmered like opals. "It's okay," Jake said softly, not knowing if she could understand him. "You're safe now. I've got you." The alien's eyes closed again, but Jake felt her relax slightly in his arms. As he carried her back through the forest to his cabin, Jake knew his life would never be the same. He had no idea what challenges lay ahead, but he was certain of one thing. He would do whatever it took to protect this mysterious visitor and uncover the secrets she brought from the stars. Back at the cabin, Jake gently laid the alien on his bed, his mind racing as he tried to figure out what to do next. He had basic first aid knowledge, but would it even apply to an extraterrestrial biology? Still, some things seemed universal. The need to stop bleeding, to clean wounds, to provide warmth and comfort. As Jake tended to her injuries as best he couldn't help but marvel at the alien's appearance. Her skin had a subtle luminescence, and what he had first taken for tattoos were actually intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change with her breathing. Her hair, a deep blue that bordered on black, felt like fine silk between his fingers as he cleaned the wound on her forehead. Hours passed, and Jake alternated between watching over his unexpected guest and pacing nervously by the window, half expecting to see government vehicles rolling up his driveway at any moment. But the night remained quiet, with only the usual sounds of the forest filtering through the cabin walls. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, the alien stirred. Jake, who had been dozing in a chair beside the bed, snapped to attention as her eyes slowly opened. For a long moment, they simply stared at each other. Jake found himself lost in those opalescent eyes, which seemed to contain entire galaxies within their depths. Then, to his astonishment, the alien spoke. Where am I?" Her voice was melodic, with an accent he couldn't quite place. The fact that she was speaking English at all left Jake momentarily speechless. "You're safe," he finally managed to say, echoing his words from the night before. "You're in my home. I found you in your ship after it crashed. Do you remember what happened?" The alien's brow furrowed in concentration, then her eyes widened in panic. She tried to sit up but fell back with a grimace of pain. "The Stardust Protocol," she gasped. "I have to complete the mission." "Whoa, easy there," Jake said, gently placing a hand on her shoulder to keep her from trying to rise again. "You're hurt. Whatever mission you're on, it's going to have to wait until you're healed up." The alien looked at him, confusion and wariness warring in her expression. "Why are you helping me? Your people. I thought Earth was isolationist, fearful of extraterrestrial contact." Jake chuckled softly. "Well, I can't speak for all of humanity, but I couldn't just leave you out there. I'm Jake, by the way, Jake Cooper. And you are?" The alien hesitated for a moment before responding. "My name is Lyra. I'm a scientist from, well, I suppose you wouldn't know my world. It's very far from here." "A scientist?" Jake's eyes lit up with interest. "What kind of science?" "Xenobiology and advanced propulsion systems, mainly," Lyra replied, seeming to relax slightly as the conversation turned to familiar ground. "My work was focused on interspecies medical applications and faster-than-light travel." Jake let out a low whistle. "Wow. And here I thought I was doing something impressive with my quantum computing algorithms." Lyra's eyes widened. "You work with quantum computing. But I thought Earth's technology wasn't that advanced yet." "Well, we're still in the early stages," Jake admitted. "But we're making progress. I'd love to hear about your work sometime, when you're feeling better." Lyra nodded, then winced again. "I appreciate your help, Jake, but I can't stay here. My mission is too important, and if your authorities find me—" "Hey, don't worry about that right now," Jake said soothingly. "You're in no shape to go anywhere, and this cabin is pretty isolated. We've got time to figure things out. For now, just rest and recover." As Lyra settled back onto the pillows, her eyelids growing heavy, Jake found himself marveling at the situation. Here he was, a reclusive programmer who had retreated from the world, suddenly playing host to an alien scientist with a mysterious mission. He didn't know what the coming days would bring, but as he watched Lyra drift off to sleep, Jake felt a sense of purpose that had been missing from his life for years. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he was determined to help this extraordinary visitor, and perhaps play a small part in shaping humanity's first steps into a larger galactic community. As the morning sun climbed higher in the sky, Jake pulled the curtains closed and settled back into his chair. There would be time for questions, for plans, for unraveling the mystery of Lyra's presence on Earth. But for now, in the quiet of the cabin, two beings from distant worlds had forged an unlikely connection, one that would soon ripple out to change the fate of both their peoples in ways neither could yet imagine. The Bond days passed, and Lyra's recovery progressed faster than Jake had anticipated. Her alien physiology, coupled with what she called nanomedicinal protocols in her bloodstream, allowed her to heal at a rate that would have been miraculous for a human. As her strength returned, so did her determination to complete her mission, though she remained frustratingly vague about its exact nature. "The less you know, the safer you are," Lyra insisted one evening as they sat on the cabin's porch, watching the sun set behind the trees. "I'm already putting you at risk just by being here." Jake sipped his coffee, studying her profile in the fading light. In the weeks since her crash, he'd grown accustomed to her alien features, the subtle shimmer of her skin, the ever-shifting patterns that danced across it, the grace of her movements that seemed almost ethereal at times. "I think I'm old enough to decide what risks I'm willing to take," he said with a wry smile. "Besides, I'm pretty sure harboring an extraterrestrial is already way past the point of playing it safe." Lyra turned to him, her opalescent eyes serious. "Jake, you don't understand. The stakes are astronomical. Quite literally, in this case. The Stardust Protocol isn't just about Earth, or my people. It's about the fate of this entire sector of the galaxy." Jake leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "Okay, now you have to tell me more. What exactly is this Stardust Protocol?" Lyra sighed, seeming to debate with herself for a moment before speaking. "It's a peacekeeping initiative, developed by an alliance of advanced civilizations. Earth has been, let's say, quarantined for centuries, shielded from the conflicts that rage beyond your solar system. But that protection is failing, and without the protocol, your world will be defenseless against forces you can't even imagine." Jake's mind reeled at the implications. "So you're saying there's some kind of interstellar war going on out there, and Earth is about to be caught in the middle of it?" "It's more complicated than that, but essentially, yes," Lyra confirmed. "The protocol is designed to extend a network of defensive and diplomatic measures to developing worlds like Earth, but it requires a delicate series of steps to implement. And my crash, well, it's put the entire operation at risk." Jake set down his mug, his programming mind already racing through scenarios and potential solutions. "Okay, so what do we need to do to get things back on track? There must be some way I can help." Lyra looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and concern. "Jake, I appreciate your offer, but involving you further could put you in grave danger. If the wrong factions learn of my presence here—" "I'm already involved," Jake interrupted gently. "And frankly, it sounds like the whole planet's in danger if we don't do something. So, come on, alien genius. Let's put our heads together and figure this out." A slow smile spread across Lyra's face, and Jake felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the coffee. "Very well," she said. "I suppose two heads are better than one, even if they're from different species. The first step is to repair my ship's communication array. I need to send a coded signal to my allies, let them know the situation." Jake nodded, already mentally cataloging the tools and equipment he had available. "All right. That sounds dual, but we'll need to be careful. If your ship's putting out any kind of unusual energy signature, it might attract attention." "Agreed," Lyra said. "We'll need to work quickly and discreetly. And Jake, thank you. I don't know many humans who would be so willing to help an alien fugitive." Jake shrugged, trying to ignore the flutter in his stomach at her gratitude. "Well, I'm not exactly your average human. Comes with being a hermit programmer, I guess. Now let's head down to your ship and see what we're working with." As they made their way through the darkening forest to the crash site, Jake couldn't help but reflect on how surreal his life had become. A week ago, his biggest concern had been debugging a particularly tricky piece of code. Now, he was embarking on a secret mission to save the planet with an alien scientist by his side. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Jake and Lyra worked tirelessly on the ship, their different areas of expertise complementing each other perfectly. Jake's knowledge of Earth's technology, combined with his adaptive programming skills, allowed him to interface with Lyra's advanced systems in ways that surprised even her. "You know," Lyra said on their third day of repairs, her head buried in a panel of glowing. "You know," Lyra said on their third day of repairs, her head buried in a panel of glowing circuitry, "your adaptability is quite remarkable. Most species would struggle to comprehend this level of technology, let alone work with it so intuitively." Jake grinned, his fingers flying over a makeshift interface he'd cobbled together from his laptop and some of Lyra's spare components. "Well, when you've spent as much time as I have diving into the weirdest corners of computer science, you learn to think outside the box. Besides, your tech is like a programmer's dream come true. It's like someone took all our wildest theories and made them real." As they worked, Jake and Lyra found themselves sharing stories of their respective worlds. Lyra spoke of vast cityscapes that floated among the clouds, of starships that could cross galaxies in the blink of an eye, and of scientific marvels that sounded like magic to Jake's ears. In return, Jake told her about Earth's history, its diverse cultures, and the relentless human drive to explore and innovate. "It's fascinating," Lyra mused as they took a break, sitting on a fallen log near the ship. "Your people have accomplished so much, despite being isolated from the galactic community. Imagine what you could achieve with access to advanced alien technology." Jake chuckled. "Careful there. That kind of talk is how you get invaded in most of our sci-fi movies." Lyra tilted her head, confused. "Sci-fi movies? Oh man, we got to have a movie night when we're done with this," Jake said, grinning. "You'll love it, or maybe you'll find it hilariously inaccurate. Either way, it'll be fun." As the days passed, their work on the ship progressed steadily. But it wasn't just the communication array that was being repaired. Jake found himself opening up to Lyra in ways he hadn't with anyone in years. He told her about the personal tragedy that had driven him to seek solitude in the woods, the loss of his wife and unborn child in a car accident 5 years ago. "I'm so sorry, Jake," Lyra said softly, placing her hand on his. The touch sent a tingling sensation up his arm. "Loss is a universal constant, it seems. My own world, it was torn apart by a war that should never have happened. That's part of why the Stardust Protocol is so important. It's not just about protecting developing worlds. It's about preventing the kind of conflicts that can destroy entire civilizations." Jake nodded, squeezing her hand gently. "Then we'd better make sure we get it right." Their moment of connection was interrupted by a distant sound that made them both freeze, the unmistakable whir of helicopter blades. "Oh no," Jake breathed, jumping to his feet. "We need to cover the ship now." They scrambled to pull the camouflage netting they'd prepared over the crashed vessel, their hearts pounding. As they worked, the sound grew louder, and soon a black helicopter appeared over the treetops, circling the area. "Jake," Lyra whispered urgently, "if they find me." "They won't," Jake assured her, though his own voice was tight with tension. "The camo net should block their sensors, and from the air, it'll look like part of the forest floor. We just need to stay still and wait it out." For what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, Jake and Lyra huddled together beneath the edge of the netting, barely daring to breathe. The helicopter made several passes over the area before finally moving off, the sound of its rotors fading into the distance. "That was too close," Jake said, releasing a shaky breath. "I think our time just got a lot shorter. We need to finish the repairs and send your signal as soon as possible." Lyra nodded, her expression grim. "Agreed. But Jake, you should know. Once I send the signal, things are going to change. Not just for me, but for your entire world. Are you sure you're ready for that? Jake looked at her, taking in her alien beauty, the intelligence and compassion in her eyes, and the way she had irrevocably altered his life in just a few short days. He thought about the lonely existence he'd been living before she literally crashed into his world, and the sense of purpose he'd found in working by her side. "Lyra," he said with a smile, "I think I've been ready for a change for a long time. I just needed the right catalyst. Now come on, let's go save the world." With renewed determination, they returned to their work. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the trees, Jake made the final connections on their jury-rigged communication array. "Okay," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. "I think we're ready. It's all you now, Lyra." Lyra took a deep breath, her fingers hovering over the alien controls. "Jake, thank you for everything. Whatever happens next, I want you to know that meeting you has changed me. Your kindness, your brilliance, your ability to adapt and persevere, you've shown me the best of what humanity has to offer." Before Jake could respond, Lyra pressed a sequence of symbols on the control panel. The ship hummed to life, and a beam of pure white light shot up into the darkening sky. "It's done," Lyra said softly. "The signal has been sent. Now, we wait." As they stood together, watching the light fade into the stars, Jake felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew that his life, and potentially the fate of the entire planet, had just changed forever. Little did they know that their actions had not gone unnoticed. Miles away, in a top-secret government facility, alarms were blaring. A senior official leaned over a computer screen, his face illuminated by the glow of satellite imagery, showing a mysterious energy signature emanating from what should have been an empty stretch of forest. "Sir," a technician said, her voice tense, "I think we found our crash site, and it looks like whatever landed there, it just phoned home." The official straightened, his expression grim. "Assemble a team. I want boots on the ground within the hour. Whatever's out there, we need to contain it. Now." As night fell over the forest, the pieces were set in motion for a confrontation that would determine the future of Earth's place in the galactic community. And at the center of it all, an unlikely pair, a reclusive human programmer and a brilliant alien scientist, stood ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. The protocol. The night air was electric with tension as Jake and Lyra made their way back to the cabin. The successful transmission of the signal had filled them both with a mixture of relief and apprehension. They knew that their actions had set in motion events that would ripple across the galaxy, but the immediate consequences were still uncertain. As they entered the cabin, Lyra's alien device, which Jake had started calling her space phone, emitted a soft chime. Her eyes widened as she read the incoming message. "Jake," she said, her voice a mix of excitement and worry. "They've received the signal. A delegation is on its way. We have less than 48 hours before they arrive." Jake ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. "Okay, so what does that mean for us? For Earth?" Lyra took a deep breath, her iridescent pattern swirling more rapidly than usual, a sign of agitation. Jake had learned. "It means we need to prepare your world for first contact. The Stardust Protocol isn't just a defensive measure. It's a carefully orchestrated series of steps designed to integrate developing worlds into the galactic community with minimal disruption." She began pacing, her movements graceful even in her distress. "Ideally, we would have had months to lay the groundwork, to make discreet contacts with world leaders, to gradually introduce the concept of advanced alien civilizations. But now, we'll have to improvise." Jake nodded, already moving to his computer. "All right, so we need to get the word out, but in a way that won't cause panic. I think I have an idea, but it's going to require some serious hacking skills and a bit of luck." For the next several hours, Jake and Lyra worked tirelessly. Jake's fingers flew over his keyboard, bypassing firewalls and security protocols with an ease that impressed even Lyra. Together, they crafted a message, a declaration of peaceful intent from an alien civilization, combined with a warning about the dangers lurking in the depths of space and the promise of protection through the Stardust Protocol. As dawn broke, their message was primed and ready, set to be broadcast simultaneously across every major news network, social media platform, and government communication channel around the globe. "Are you sure about this, Jake?" Lyra asked, her hand hovering over the final command key. "Once we do this, there's no going back. Your world will never be the same." Jake took a deep breath, then placed his hand over hers. "Lyra, from the moment you crashed into my life, nothing has been the same. And you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. Let's do this. Let's change the world." Together, they pressed the key. Across the planet, screens flickered to life. Smartphones buzzed with urgent notifications, and everywhere, people stopped and stared as the message began to play. "People of Earth, we come in peace." The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Social media exploded with discussions, theories, and no small amount of panic. News anchors struggled to maintain composure as they reported on the unprecedented global broadcast. And in government offices around the world, leaders scrambled to respond to what could only be described as humanity's most important moment. But Jake and Lyra had no time to monitor the global reaction. Within minutes of their broadcast, the sound of approaching vehicles shattered the morning quiet. "They're here," Jake said, peering out the window to see a convoy of black SUVs racing up the dirt road to his cabin. "I guess we got their attention." Lyra stood tall, her alien features set in a determined expression. "Remember, Jake, no matter what happens, we must convince them of the importance of the Stardust Protocol. The fate of your world depends on it." Before Jake could respond, there was a loud pounding at the door. "This is the United States government. Open up immediately." Jake and Lyra exchanged one last look, a silent communication of trust and resolve passing between them. Then, with a deep breath, Jake opened the door. The next few hours were a whirlwind of interrogations, explanations, and tense negotiations. Jake and Lyra found themselves separated, each questioned by teams of stern-faced government agents. But they had prepared for this, their stories aligned, their commitment to the truth unwavering. As the day wore on, higher-ranking officials began to arrive. Jake caught glimpses of military uniforms, of men and women in expensive suits speaking urgently into secure phones. The atmosphere in the cabin, once a place of solitude, and then of interspecies collaboration, now crackled with the energy of world-changing decisions being made. Finally, as the sun began to set, Jake and Lyra were brought together in what had been Jake's living room, now transformed into an impromptu command center. Facing them was a distinguished-looking man with silver hair and piercing blue eyes, flanked by military and scientific advisors. "Mr. Cooper, Lyra," the man said, his voice carrying the weight of authority, "I'm Director Hargrove of the Global Defense Initiative. We've spent the day verifying your claims and analyzing the data you've provided. I have to say, it's beyond anything we could have imagined." He paused, his gaze shifting between Jake and Lyra. "The President and other world leaders are being briefed as we speak. The question now is, what happens next?" Lyra stepped forward, her alien presence somehow both otherworldly and diplomatic. "Director Hargrove, what happens next is crucial not just for Earth, but for the stability of this entire sector of the galaxy. The Stardust Protocol offers your world protection, yes, but it also offers opportunity. The chance to join a community of civilizations, to advance your science and technology beyond your wildest dreams." Jake nodded, adding, "But it has to be done right. The protocol isn't just about dropping advanced tech in our laps. It's a carefully managed process of integration, designed to prevent the kind of cultural and economic shocks that could tear our world apart." Director Hargrove leaned back, his expression thoughtful. And you believe we have less than 24 hours before this delegation arrives? That's correct, Lyra confirmed. They will be expecting to meet with Earth's leaders to begin the formal process of implementing the protocol. The director was silent for a long moment, the weight of the decision visible in the set of his shoulders. Finally, he spoke. Very well. Mr. Cooper, Lyra, you've given us a lot to process in a very short time. But given the circumstances, I don't see that we have much choice. We'll need your help to prepare for this meeting. As the room burst into activity, Jake felt a surge of relief and excitement. They had done it. Earth was taking its first, tentative steps into a larger universe. But their victory was short-lived. Just as plans were being made for the upcoming alien delegation, one of the technicians monitoring global communications let out a startled exclamation. Sir, we're picking up chatter from multiple extremist groups. They're calling for resistance against the alien invaders. There are reports of mobilizations, of weapons being distributed. I think we might have a serious problem. Director Hargrove's face hardened. It seems not everyone is ready to embrace our new galactic neighbors. We need to contain this. Fast. The last thing we need is for humanity's first official contact with an alien species to be marred by violence. Jake and Lyra exchanged worried glances. They had anticipated skepticism, even fear, but armed resistance. This was a complication they hadn't prepared for. As the room erupted into urgent discussions of security measures and containment strategies, Jake felt Lyra's hand slip into his. He looked at her, seeing his own mix of determination and concern mirrored in her opalescent eyes. We'll find a way, he said softly, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. We've come too far to fail now. Lyra nodded, her pattern swirling with a mixture of emotions Jake was only beginning to understand. Together, she replied, her voice firm with resolve. As night fell over the cabin, now the unlikely epicenter of humanity's first steps into a larger galactic community, Jake and Lyra stood side by side, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The Stardust Protocol was more than just a peacekeeping initiative now. It had become a symbol of hope, of progress, and of the incredible potential that lay in the union of two worlds. The next 24 hours would determine the fate of Earth and its place in the cosmos. And at the heart of it all, an improbable pair. A reclusive human programmer and a brilliant alien scientist stood ready to guide humanity towards its stellar destiny. The confrontation. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of frenetic activity. Jake's cabin, once a haven of solitude, had been transformed into a makeshift command center. Government officials, military personnel, and scientific experts rushed in and out, their faces etched with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Jake and Lyra found themselves at the center of it all, providing crucial information about the incoming alien delegation and the intricacies of the Stardust Protocol. Despite the chaos, they worked in perfect sync, their bond growing stronger with each passing hour. As the deadline approached, Director Hargrove called for a final briefing. The tension in the room was palpable as he addressed the assembled team. Ladies and gentlemen, in less than an hour, we will be making history. The first official contact between humanity and an advanced alien civilization. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the room. But we face significant challenges. Extremist groups are mobilizing worldwide, and we've intercepted chatter suggesting a possible attack on the landing site. Jake felt Lyra stiffen beside him. He reached out, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. Our priority, Hargrove continued, is to ensure the safety of the alien delegation and the success of this first contact. Mr. Cooper, Lyra, you'll be with me in the welcoming committee. The rest of you know your assignments. Let's make humanity proud. As the briefing concluded, Jake pulled Lyra aside. Hey, are you okay? He asked softly. Lyra's iridescent pattern swirled with anxiety. Jake, I'm worried. If anything goes wrong, if these extremists succeed in disrupting the meeting, "We won't let that happen," Jake assured her, his voice filled with a confidence he didn't entirely feel. "We've come too far to fail now. Your people, my people, we're going to make this work." Lyra nodded, her alien features softening into a smile that made Jake's heart skip a beat. "You're right. Together, we can do this." Their moment was interrupted by a sudden commotion outside. They rushed to the window, and Jake's breath caught in his throat. There, descending from the sky in complete silence, was a ship unlike anything he had ever seen. It seemed to bend light around it, its sleek form shimmering like a mirage. "They're here," Lyra whispered, her voice filled with awe and relief. The next few minutes were a whirlwind of activity as final preparations were made. Jake found himself standing beside Director Hargrove and a group of high-ranking officials, with Lyra at his side. As the alien ship touched down in a clearing near the cabin, a hush fell over the assembled humans. With a soft hiss, a doorway appeared in the side of the ship. Jake held his breath as three figures emerged. They were humanoid, like Lyra, but each was distinctly different. One tall and willowy with skin that seemed to ripple like water, another stocky and covered in iridescent scales, and the third glowing faintly with an inner light. Lyra stepped forward, greeting the aliens in a melodic language Jake couldn't understand. Then she turned to the human delegation. "Honored representatives of Earth," she said, her voice clear and strong, "I present to you the Galactic Council's emissaries. They come in peace, to offer Earth protection through the Stardust Protocol, and to welcome humanity into the greater galactic community." Director Hargrove stepped forward, his posture straight and dignified. "On behalf of the people of Earth, we welcome you. We are honored by your visit and look forward to peaceful cooperation between our worlds." Just as it seemed the historic meeting was off to a smooth start, chaos erupted. The sound of gunfire filled the air, and shouts of "Earth for humans" could be heard from the surrounding forest. "Protect the delegates," Hargrove shouted as security personnel rushed to form a defensive perimeter. Jake's mind raced. They needed to defuse the situation quickly, or everything they had worked for could be lost in a moment of senseless violence. Without thinking, he grabbed Lyra's hand and stepped in front of the alien delegates, facing the direction of the attack. "Stop," he shouted, his voice carrying across the clearing. "This isn't who we are. This isn't the humanity I believe in." To everyone's surprise, the gunfire ceased. Jake pressed on, his heart pounding. "I know you're scared. I was scared too when I first met Lyra. But I've learned that there's so much more that unites us than divides us. These beings have traveled across the stars not to conquer, but to offer us friendship, to share knowledge, to help us grow." He took a deep breath, feeling Lyra's support through their joined hands. "We stand at a crossroads. We can choose fear and isolation, or we can choose hope and connection. The universe is vast and full of wonders, and today we have the chance to become part of something greater than ourselves." As Jake spoke, he noticed movement in the trees. Slowly, figures began to emerge, men and women lowering their weapons, their faces a mixture of confusion and wonder as they gazed at the alien delegates. One of the alien emissaries, the one with the glowing skin, stepped forward. When it spoke, its voice seemed to resonate in Jake's mind rather than his ears. "Your words speak to the very heart of the Stardust Protocol," it said. "It is not merely about technology or defense. It is about understanding, about seeing the best in each other across the vastness of space. This human has demonstrated the very qualities that make your species worthy of joining our galactic community." Director Hargrove, who had been tense throughout the confrontation, visibly relaxed. "On behalf of all humanity, I apologize for this incident. I hope it does not jeopardize our future relations." The alien emissary made a gesture that somehow conveyed both dismissal and understanding. "The path to the stars is never easy. What matters is how we face our challenges. Today, humanity has shown its potential for greatness. As the tension dissipated, Jake felt a wave of relief wash over him. He turned to Lyra, seeing his own mix of emotions reflected in her alien eyes. "We did it," he said softly. Lyra's pattern swirled with joy. "No, Jake. You did it. You showed the best of humanity when it mattered most." As the human and alien delegations began to mingle, Jake realized that this was only the beginning. The real work of implementing the Stardust Protocol and integrating Earth into the galactic community was just starting. But looking at the scene before him, humans and aliens cautiously but curiously interacting, the former attackers now engaged in conversation with the beings they had feared moments ago, he felt a surge of hope. The road ahead would be challenging, but humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, and Jake, the once reclusive programmer, found himself at the heart of it all, hand in hand with an alien scientist who had changed his life in ways he could never have imagined. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Jake and Lyra stood together, watching the birth of a new era for humanity. The Stardust Protocol was more than a defensive measure or a technological exchange. It was a bridge between worlds, a promise of a future where the boundaries of species and planets no longer divided sentient beings. The confrontation had been averted, but the real adventure was just beginning. The new dawn. In the days that followed the historic first contact, Earth was a planet transformed. The implementation of the Stardust Protocol began in earnest, and Jake and Lyra found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity. World leaders convened in an emergency United Nations session, broadcast live across the globe. The alien emissaries, with Lyra acting as a liaison, presented the full scope of the Stardust Protocol. It was more than just a defensive shield or a technological exchange. It was a comprehensive program designed to gradually integrate Earth into the galactic community. As Jake watched the proceedings from a specially designated area, he couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. Just weeks ago, he had been a recluse, hiding from the world in his cabin. Now he was witnessing the dawn of a new era for humanity. "It's incredible, isn't it?" Lyra said, joining him. Her iridescent pattern swirled with excitement. Jake nodded, a smile playing on his lips. "It's like something out of a dream. I keep expecting to wake up back in my cabin, alone." Lyra's hand found his, her touch sending a familiar tingle up his arm. "This is very real, Jake, and it's just the beginning." As the days turned into weeks, the changes became more tangible. The first phase of the Stardust Protocol involved the establishment of a global defense grid, utilizing a combination of Earth's existing satellite network and advanced alien technology. Jake found himself working alongside the brightest minds from around the world and beyond, his programming skills proving invaluable in integrating the disparate systems. Lyra, meanwhile, had become a celebrity of sorts. As one of the first aliens that humans had interacted with extensively, she was in high demand for interviews, lectures, and cultural exchange programs. Despite the demands on their time, Jake and Lyra made sure to find moments for each other, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. One evening, as they stood on the balcony of their new apartment in New York, a far cry from Jake's isolated cabin, Lyra turned to him with a serious expression. "Jake, there's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice soft. "My mission here, it's coming to an end. The initial phase of the Stardust Protocol is almost complete, and I'll be expected to return to my homeworld to report on its success." Jake felt his heart sink. He had known this moment would come, but he hadn't expected it so soon. "When?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "In a few days," Lyra replied, her pattern swirling with a mix of sadness and something else, something Jake couldn't quite identify. Jake took a deep breath, steeling himself. "I understand. You have responsibilities, a life beyond Earth. I'll miss you, Lyra." Lyra's alien features softened into a smile that never failed to take Jake's breath away. "Jake Cooper, you wonderful, brilliant human. Did you really think I was going to leave you behind?" Before Jake could process her words, Lyra continued, her voice filled with emotion. "The Stardust Protocol isn't just about integrating Earth into the galactic community. It's about fostering understanding between different species, about building bridges across the stars. And you, Jake, you've been the embodiment of that ideal from the moment we met." She took both of his hands in hers, her opalescent eyes shimmering. "I've been authorized to offer you a position as Earth's first official representative to the Galactic Council. You'll be a diplomat, a cultural attaché, and a symbol of humanity's potential. And, if you're willing, you'll be by my side as we explore the wonders of the universe together." Jake stood stunned, his mind reeling with the possibilities. Leave Earth? Become a galactic diplomat? The idea was as terrifying as it was exhilarating. But as he looked into Lyra's eyes, he knew there was only one answer he could give. "Lyra," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you crashed into my world and turned my life upside down in the best possible way. There's nothing I want more than to explore the universe with you." Their embrace was a meeting of two worlds, a bridge across the vast gulfs of space and species. As they held each other, the New York skyline glittering behind them, Jake marveled at the journey that had brought him to this moment. The following days were a blur of preparations and goodbyes. Jake's appointment as Earth's representative was met with widespread approval. His role in averting disaster during the first contact had made him a global hero, and his understanding of both human and alien perspectives made him the ideal candidate. On the day of their departure, a crowd gathered to see them off. Director Hargrove, who had become a close ally, shook Jake's hand firmly. "You've done your planet proud, Cooper," he said, his usually stern face softening. "Remember, no matter how far you go, you'll always have a home here." As Jake and Lyra boarded the sleek alien ship that would take them to the stars, they paused at the entrance, looking back at the planet that had been the stage for their incredible story. "Are you ready?" Lyra asked, her hand intertwined with Jake's. Jake took one last look at Earth, the blue marble that had been humanity's cradle for millennia. Then he turned to Lyra, seeing in her alien features the promise of adventures yet to come. "With you? Always," he replied. As the ship's doors closed and the vessel began its ascent, Jake felt a mixture of excitement and nostalgia. He was leaving behind everything he had ever known, but he was gaining a universe of possibilities. The Stardust Protocol had been more than a peacekeeping initiative or a technological exchange. It had been the catalyst for a personal journey, a love story that spanned the stars, and the beginning of humanity's greatest adventure. As Earth shrank to a glowing blue dot behind them, Jake and Lyra stood hand in hand, their figures silhouetted against the vast starfield. Before them lay the infinite expanse of the cosmos, filled with wonders waiting to be discovered and challenges to be overcome. Together, they had bridged the gap between two worlds. Now, they would explore the countless worlds beyond, ambassadors of hope, understanding, and the limitless potential of cooperation across the stars. The Stardust Protocol had begun as a mission to protect Earth. It had become a testament to the power of connection, the strength found in diversity, and the boundless possibilities that arise when different worlds come together in pursuit of a shared future. As their ship engaged its faster-than-light drive, propelling them towards distant stars, Jake and Lyra embarked on the next chapter of their cosmic journey, a journey that would inspire generations of humans and aliens alike, a living embodiment of the spirit that had brought two lonely souls together, and, in doing so, changed the fate of an entire planet. The universe, vast and mysterious, awaited them, and in that moment, as starlight streamed past their viewport, Jake knew that the greatest adventure of all, love that transcended the boundaries of worlds, was just beginning. The end.